of their practice updates, and apparently, because now they're 4 padded practices in, so they've had the pads on for 4 practices. I believe they had 6 practices total. The 7th practice, I believe, is tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So they got a pretty good little sample size now of the guys in pads getting physical. And the report was that the last practice was their most physical padded practice. And you're trying to build to a crescendo, right? You're trying to, make sure that you peak at the right time during the spring, or right around the spring game when you're playing your best football, at least practicing your best football, because they're not playing yet. But the reports that my man Jerry Hamilton threw out there was that Cedric Baxter looks really good. Like he is since now they're actually, they're actually in pads, and they're actually now getting physical, hitting one another. He's one of the guys now you're separating, because the first part of practice is, they're in what Sark calls underwear. So, I mean, everybody looks pretty good. It's just guys running around, great athletes, showing off their agility, showing off how fast they are. Once you put the pads on, all the pads on, some guys slow down, some guys stay the same speed as they were basically when they were running in what Sark calls underwear, what we call shells. And then once you start hitting, that's a whole nother element of football that also separates and elevates guys. And so, trust me, the coaches are looking at the guys who are now separating, elevating. The more they hit, the more other guys start to stand out, because some guys in the midst of that physicality, they can combine that with the finesse of the game. All right, because that's what you have early on. It's the finesse.
Yeah.
And everybody looks good in the finesse. Everybody's out there in shorts and shorts. You know what I mean? Looking good, looking swift. Nobody's hitting anybody. It's like, man, everybody out here looks really, really good. They start hitting guys, and then, hey, man, some guys run a little bit slower. All right, they're a little bit more timid out there. And then once you add, all the pads, and then you add full-on physicality, that's when you get guys that separate and elevate. So, and some guys just aren't ready for that yet. Some of the younger guys, and maybe even some of the guys who've been in the program a while. But that's what you're looking at now as a coach. Once you got those padded practices in, who's separating now and elevating now that we are bringing the physicality element to it, and who still has that, elite level agility, elite level speed, even though now we got the pads and we're playing at a more physical level. So good to see Cedric Baxter, one of them guys. That's basically throwing out there.
Yeah, no, it's good to see him, because we know that he was somebody last year that we there was issues of him staying on the field at points.
Great point.
And we expected him to put on, get some work done in the weight room over the offseason and come back in a better shape and be more ready for it. But he was a guy that you saw, and there was too many times last season, he would go have a good run and then hobble off the field. And you just went, okay, you can't put together a solid drive because you can't just run right back, hop in the huddle, and then go again and go again. And that's where you want to see your feature back. You want to have a feature back that can continue to go in there and just punish a defense, especially when you're talking about getting into the fourth quarter when things are, if you have a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown lead and you just kind of want to run it out, and you have a guy that you can put in there and he just picks up 5-6 yards and demoralizes and dehumanizes a defense and there's no way you stop him. That was something Jonathan Brooks was getting really good at before his injury, was being able to come in at the end and just stay in the game and just keep running the ball. So it's good to hear that he is coming out looking good in the pads and with contact, because that was probably the thing you'd worry about the most with him last season.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I've heard he's not gained any weight really, but his body has changed. So I think he's just kind of transformed the weight that he has, that mass into more muscle, which is what he needed armor. He was young, and that's why those hits they were hurting, because he didn't have much armor on.
Yeah.
And I've heard from the guys coming out of those programs in Florida that sometimes, and this is no knock on Florida programs, but they don't have the very sophisticated strength and conditioning programs of schools that in the DFW area, or that basically look like many JUCOs out there, many college campuses. They don't really have that a lot of times. So when those guys get to a college campus, they usually take a huge leap in terms of their body transformation, because or at least more than some of the guys here in Texas, just because they haven't had access to it just yet. So good to see that from Cedric Baxter, or at least to hear that about Cedric Baxter. Other guys who are kind of rising up, or at least starting to separate now that they put the pads on. Nato Umeozulu, the offensive lineman's getting a lot more reps on the first team at that left guard position. Remember, that's the only spot that's really kind of an open competition right now on that offensive line. Everything else seems to be pretty solidified. So between Neto and Cole Hudson and Hayden Connor, they've been moving guys around. It looks like he right now seems to be getting most of those reps at left guard. You know, you'll have Kelvin Banks, Jake Majors on bookended on both sides of him if he ends up being that starting left guard. And then it looks like Cam Williams is going to end up being, and DJ Campbell. Cam Williams be that right tackle. DJ Campbell's going to be that right guard. It looks like those are your top frontline offensive linemen. I do think they want a 7-man or 8-man rotation. That's why they're cross-training some guys. Cole Hudson, Hayden Connor, cross-training guys to see what's kind of the best combination of 5 offensive linemen may be. I think in terms of run blocking, I think it's going to be Neto inside along with DJ Campbell inside those guard positions, and Cam Williams at one tackle, and of course Kelvin Banks at the other tackle. So that's right now, that's another guy that's trending. Now they're putting on the pads. Shout out to our man CJ Vogel had that report about him working with the first team offensive line left guard. Also, there's a lot of good reports about some of the other players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Gilbo's getting some love. There are reports that Jahdae Barron's cross training. We know that. Sark said he's cross training a lot of guys. Jahdae Barron wants to play corner because he believes in the NFL. He wants to be a corner.
Yeah.
Corners get paid more money. He wants to be a corner. And I think they're going to cross train him at all 3 spots. They should, because he can play all 3 spots. But in order to get him to corner or to get him out there situationally, matchup wise, however you want to do it, you need to have somebody you trust that can play the nickel. And Jalen Gilbo looks like he may be the guy that they trust that can play the nickel. Now, Makuba can also play the nickel if you need him, but the reports are Makuba is going to be a safety. It looks great at safety, and that's where he's going to be. So you need somebody else you can put at that nickel spot. It looks like Jalen Gilbo is stepping up to be that guy. If you want to move Jahdae Barron around, you need somebody to stabilize the nickel position, and it looks like Jalen Gilbo right now could be that guy.
Yeah, and that could be a good piece. I know that the Jahdae Barron, one of the interesting is, they talked about the headset communication that he mentioned at a point. He could have had him at that star position. He could have put it over there, but I figured that would mostly be if it was Jahdae Barron in that position. You'd figure that would be
can't
more
move
like
him around if you
and so I don't know if that's going to be that may knock that position out of the running for the headset communication. But yeah, it's good to see. You just want to see more competition in that defensive backs room, just in any sense, form, or fashion. You want to see more competition of guys stepping up, that there's more, that you feel you have more players in that room than you're going to need, because that has not been the case the last few years.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really good news if Jalen Gilbo stepping up like that. I think that the defensive backfield could end up being, like I said, a strength for the Longhorns this year. Another guy that just continues to get rave reviews is DeAndre Moore. Even with the pads on, he's gonna play. DeAndre Moore is gonna be a part of that receiving rotation. And remember, I told you guys, or at least my prediction was, they're gonna expand the circle of trust of wide receivers for Sark. So DeAndre Moore is going to be in there. We know Jonte Cook and Isaiah Bond are going to be part of that group. I think Matthew Golden is going to be part of that group. That's 4. And then you throw in a Silas Bowden, who's not even on campus yet, from Oregon State. That would be 5. You throw him in there. Now, there's no guarantee he's going to crack it. I think he will. And I'm not saying, how many reps guys are going to get or what the target share is going to be. I'm just saying guys that'll end up being in a rotation. I think that's 5. And then if you include the young buck Ryan Wingo, I don't know if you want to, you can sprinkle him in there. But he's getting a lot of love too about how I think Inside Texas reported that he's ahead of the curve at wide receiver. And he's a 5-star guy, a prodigy. So I think you'll get at least 5 guys in the rotation. This will be I think the heaviest rotation that Sark has had at wide receiver since he's been at Texas.
It wouldn't surprise me early if you had 6 guys in the rotation pretty heavily, and then it got whittled down to 5, and then maybe 4 by the end of the season. It wouldn't surprise if he kind of finds the guys he can trust in the guys who are really earn it throughout the season and are consistent. And then I like the reports I was saying when Ryan Wingo is too, that you could see him maybe being used in times where it's not necessarily just as a wide receiver, but in plays, in reverses, in other things where it's not always where he's going to be coming down and running a ton of routes, but use situationally where they feel they can put him into a play and let him use his speed and his talents to try and break a big play and use his explosive play ability a little bit more than getting a ton of receptions, just going out and trying to catch the ball.
He was a great. Now I don't know who. It seems like to me, I think Silas Bowden projects to be the punt returner, but he was a great punt returner in high school too. He's just really electric and dynamic with the ball in his hand. So I could see that. And you look at him in high school, he really is. He's next level with the ball in his hands. He's one of those guys that can make you miss in a phone booth. And his size, it seems like, oh man, he can't move like that, but he's got rare agility for a guy with his size and his frame. All right, good